I will request the media please stop recording. Thank you. Welcome to meeting number 134 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format. I'd like to remind participants of the following points. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. All comments should be addressed through the chair. Members, please raise your hands if you wish to speak, whether participating in person or via Zoom. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can. On our electoral interference and criminal activities in Canada by agents from the Government of India study, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on October 22nd, 2024, the committee resumes its study. I'd like to now welcome our witness today. As an individual, Patrick Brown, Mayor of Brampton, by video conference. I will now invite Mr. Patrick Brown to make an opening statement of up to 5 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you, Equinder, and I want to say first of all that I was invited previously to come before this committee, and I declined previously because my focus is not on revisiting the 2022 Conservative leadership. It is on my job as Mayor of Brampton, and it's a very busy job. I don't have an interest in revisiting partisan debates. My focus is on the progress of the city that I lead. Even today, we had a Region of Peel budget meeting, and so it is difficult to add in new work to the schedule, but I respect the committee process. I respect the summons that was issued, and I'm here today to answer any question that you may have. I don't believe I have a lot to add to this discussion. And frankly, part of my concern about participating was that I was concerned that, I know how the committee process works in Ottawa. I've been an MP for 3 terms, spent almost 9 years in Ottawa, and I know that at committee, every party has their own agenda. The Liberal Party will have an agenda, the Conservative Party will have an agenda, the NDP will have an agenda, the Bloc will have an agenda. There was a commission on foreign intervention with the Hogue Commission, and if asked to testify there, I would have. My concern about being brought into a partisan environment is that it is not something I'm interested in engaging in. Municipal politics, municipal public service is nonpartisan. Right now, we've got a productive working relationship with the Government of Canada, which is Liberal, the Government of Ontario, which is Conservative, and we've got a lot of exciting projects that we're embarking upon. And so I don't really want to get drawn into partisan debates, but at the same time, I understand that it's important to guard our democracy against foreign intervention. And if there's something that I can add today that would be helpful, I'd be happy to answer those questions. And I've already made some comments in the media about why I felt there wasn't much I could add, but I'm here to answer your questions if needed.
Great, thank you. I know that you were an MP, obviously, for several terms, and you're very familiar with the rules of committee and Parliament. I'd just like to remind you that, we did start a little bit late because of votes, but you are to remain in attendance until duly discharged, which is what the notice paper said as well. We'll start with the first round for questions. Ms. Dancho for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Brown, Mayor Brown, for being with us today. As I'm sure you've seen, and certainly in your statement would confirm, but there's been some wild allegations made about the Conservative Party leadership race and concerning your campaign and other things. So I'd like to just ask you right off the top, do you believe that foreign interference influenced the final outcome of the 2022 Conservative leadership race?
I don't believe foreign intervention affected the final outcome of the Conservative leadership race. I believe that Pierre Poilievre was successful in that race because he signed 300,000 plus memberships, and I don't believe acts of foreign intervention affected that result.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And you also alluded to in your remarks here today, but also in your statement, that you feel that there's a bit of politicization going on at this committee concerning foreign interference and India, which I would agree with that. This is quite a serious issue, of course. There are allegations, as you well know, that a foreign government allegedly conspired to murder Canadian citizens on Canadian soil. Very serious matter, a devastating matter for those communities, and a serious affront on our sovereignty. And now we have a situation here where you are called, and I would agree, for political reasons. Can you comment on that?
Well, I'd say first of all, I have many residents that were aghast and alarmed and scared those when they had that RCMP press conference that released details about the extrajudicial killing in Surrey, and it certainly is reason to investigate foreign intervention. I think my commentary about the com- Justice Hoke's commission and a parliamentary committee or to distinguish between one which is in a nonpartisan setting and committees by its nature. And I remember from my time in Ottawa, very much have a partisan agenda about them. It's why when I was given the choice to attend, I said, no, I'm going to focus on my job as mayor of Brampton. But because the summons was issued, I'm aware of my legal obligations and I'm here to answer questions. But that was my apprehension. I don't want to be brought into a partisan debate on Parliament Hill.
Thank you. And Conservatives certainly supported the study going forward, and we supported your invitation. But what we did not support is politicizing this accountability tool at committee. And so I would agree with a lot of what you said, but though I am quite concerned that this has politicized a very serious issue. And I know, Mr. Mayor Brown, that you represent a community that has many Sikh Canadians. And so you must have a good sense of the mood on the ground there. Can you enlighten the committee a bit of what impact the past few months has had on them? And we'd just like to hear, for the record, I think it'd be useful for our committee, the impact that this has had.
So I think there is concern in Brampton. I'm sure there's the case in other big diverse cities about foreign intervention, about their safety, and for obviously I'm concerned about that. I want everyone to feel safe and secure in Canada, and we've seen a level of genuine fear. It really was heightened with incidents that happened in Surrey, and I would note when that incident happened, that extrajudicial killing, we had members of the Sikh community come to our council and state rather unequivocally that they felt it was an act of foreign intervention, that they had received a duty to warn themselves, some of them, about their own safety. For that reason, we wrote a letter to Public Safety Canada at the time asking for there to be an investigation into whether there was foreign intervention. And so I think the suspicion of what was confirmed by the Public Safety Minister and the RCMP many months later was one that our community was feeling very early on.
Thank you. And we've heard that from witness testimony as well, that they've been sounding the alarm, the community, for many years, and have had those duties to warn and really no other supports, unfortunately. And again, I'm quite concerned about the impact that this has had on the community. I think we all are, frankly. But really, I think regarding your presence here today, are you under the impression that you outlined it really well. The Justice Hoke Commission, a very serious affair. This committee now is supposed to be a serious matter looking into this, and yet it seems that the Liberals have politicized it. So do you feel that the Liberal government perhaps has failed to protect the Sikh community and others from foreign interference?
Well, I'm not going to wade into a partisan assessment here. My goal in public service municipally is to be nonpartisan so that I can work with everyone in the best interest of Brampton. What I would say is I think governments at all levels of all partisan stripes could do more to address foreign intervention. I don't think it is something that is a failure of one party or one level of government. I believe that we can all do more to guard against foreign intervention and protect our residents, and I include municipal government in that. We've had to take some steps recently to protect places of worship from conflict, and so I think we all need to learn from the news and incidents and the revelations that have been presented before us, and see what we can do to protect our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And again, I know that you're taking this matter very seriously and the impact it's had on your community and for Sikh Canadians across the country. The Conservatives are deeply concerned about the impact it's had, and certainly the gross affront it's had on our national sovereignty. And we feel certainly that the federal government, the Liberal Party, has failed to prevent it, and that's on them. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I believe my time is up, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Ms. Sancho. I have Ms. Stamoff for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor Brown, thank you so much for joining us today. As a former municipal councillor, I hear you on municipal politics being nonpartisan. I want to start off just by making clear that you were invited and summoned to the committee not because we think there was any wrongdoing whatsoever on your part, as was implied by the Conservative Party. We actually had heard that you have been a victim of foreign interference, and that's why we felt it was important for you to be here today and to share your testimony. You may also be under an NDA with the Conservative Party, and as you know from your many years as an MP, when you come to committee, you are protected by parliamentary privilege and are expected to tell the truth. So I know I don't have to remind you of that, but I do sincerely want to thank you for being with us here today. In the statement that you put out, you talked about the inquiry that was going on, and you note that the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians cited India's alleged interference in a Conservative Party of Canada leadership race. I'm just wondering, can you speak to your understanding of that interference, and do you believe it was your campaign that was targeted?
So I share a few comments. First of all, I'm not under any NDA that prohibits me from speaking, and to certainly understand my obligations here today. I believe that there is a level of foreign intervention that has been around for a long time, and I don't believe foreign intervention altered the outcome of the 2022 Conservative leadership race. If you look at past leadership races and the number of memberships sold to be successful, this leadership race was, there was a level of membership sold that was incomprehensible compared to any other time in modern history. I think that's what dictated the results, not foreign
Sorry,
intervention.
Mr. Brown, I hear you on it not impacting the outcome, but I think all of us would agree that if there was any kind of interference in the campaign whatsoever, that we're all troubled by that, though. I mean,
So
do you think it was your campaign that was targeted?
So I think there's always going to be a level of foreign intervention in every political party, and I think I think it's fair to say that the government of India states their opinions, and I think there's a number of issues that I took a position on that certainly the government of India wasn't a fan of, from the Citizenship Amendment Act to the farmers' protest to the vigil for Deep Sidhu. But I don't think any commentary offered by the Indian government affected the result.
How do you know, Mayor Brown, that they weren't fans of your activity?
I don't think India or its representatives are ever shy in making their positions clear. And so, not just during the Conservative leadership race, but in my time in public service, they've always been more than blunt to express their displeasure when positions are taken that are inconsistent with their national agenda. And so, I don't think 2022 is different, than the past instances. And just to illustrate that, I remember. Yeah.
But you were quite close to President Modi at one time. Did the Indian government reach out to you during your leadership campaign with concerns about your positions that you were taking?
Well, actually, I think it predates that. And yes, I have visited India many times. I knew Prime Minister, not President. There was Prime Minister. I knew Prime Minister.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah. I knew Prime Minister Modi when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat and was fan of the economic agenda that he undertook in Gujarat. But I would say where I had challenges with my relationship with India started when the provincial legislature in Ontario recognized the 1984 genocide. And as leader of the Conservative Party at that time provincially, we supported that motion. And so the Consul General and the Canada India Foundation expressed displeasure with that support of that recognition of 1984. And so, I would hear directly from the Consul General and hear directly from the Canada India Foundation. They were upset with the position I took. And so for them to express a position was not new, and there's been many other instances like that.
Thank you, and thank you for correcting me on Prime Minister. Do you, during the time of your leadership campaign, did you have anybody from the Indian government reach out to you, though?
Not during the leadership campaign. I think the relationship by that point was already very strained.
But sorry, my microphone is. Do you have a sense that any of your campaign workers were contacted or were being targeted by representatives of India and Canada?
I don't believe my campaign workers were contacted by by agents of the government of India.
Okay, thank you. I only have 15 seconds left. I think I'll leave it for my colleagues to finish up, but I do thank you for being here and sharing your testimony with us.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Fortin, for 6 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good day, Mr. Brown. Welcome to our committee. Mr. Brown, Ms. Damoff just asked you a few questions that interest me as well, but I'll continue in that vein with your permission. Your leadership race started when, and when did it end exactly? Do you have the dates in mind or periods that they lasted?
Well, the leadership was in 2022, and I think it formally began in March, and obviously concluded for me in early July. But I would note that when Aaron O'Toole lost his confidence vote within caucus, that's when you really saw some of the campaigning begin, which would have been earlier. I believe it was earlier in the year that he lost that confidence vote.
OK, mais vous avez...
Okay, but you expressed your interest in the campaign in March 2022, and you withdrew in July 2022. Is that correct?
I believe my announcement was in March. Yes.
And if I understood your testimony properly, during your campaign, you did not have contact with representatives of the Indian government. Is that correct?
I did not have any conversations with representatives of the Indian government during the leadership campaign.
OK, mais...
Okay, but I imagine that you did have meetings or discussions with people in the Indian community of Brampton or elsewhere in Canada. Would I be correct?
Absolutely. We had a robust membership campaign across the country, and those who have ancestry and heritage in India were very much a part of that membership drive.
Et en aucun moment...
And at no time did these people have discussions with you about the interests or desires of the Indian government?
Well, you know, on a campaign, you hear a lot that is hearsay, and so I am not going to repeat before a parliamentary committee hearsay, but you have thousands and thousands of conversations, and I would say you hear a lot from the community.
Mais est-ce que vous avez eu...
But did you have any situations where members of the Indian community criticized your position on political topics involving Canada?
Certainly, I would hear about criticism of some of the positions that I had taken.
Et est-ce que ces critiques-là allaient dans...
And were those criticisms aimed about what the Indian government wanted, or was it completely banal, anodyne?
No, I would say the criticism that I was hearing from members of the community related to positions that I had taken, and at the time it was on the heels of a very large farmers' protest in India, which Brampton City Council were some of the first voices in Canada to support, and And of course, we had a widely publicized vigil for Deep Sadu, who was one of the heroes of the farmers' protest that I
Ouais.
attended that
Mais-
caused.
Merci, M. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I don't want to rush you, but you know how things work here. I have very limited time. So I'd like to hear from you. Are you aware of the percentage of the population that is Indian in your city of Brampton?
I think the community that has their ancestry in India is quite large in Brampton. It would be the largest segment of our population, as it is a growing segment of the population in Canada.
Si je vous disais 25% ou à peu près, est-ce que...
If I was to say 25% or so, would I be close?
I would almost say that the assessments are probably underestimated. I don't think we have an accurate gauge on the population of the city of Brampton in any recent census. I hear public census numbers that are 700,000, but we have some estimates that it is over 900,000. And largely due to immigration from India. So the numbers could be much larger than you suggested.
Et les membres de la communauté sikh,
And members of the Sikh community, do you have any idea what the percentage of that population is?
The largest segment of there's large populations from India in Brampton, but the largest community in Brampton from India would be those of Sikh background.
donc les problèmes ou les...
Therefore, the problems or the issues that happen in India between the Sikh and the Hindu community, that's your daily bread. You must hear about it a lot in Brampton, or am I wrong?
Well, I don't like to hear about it. I try to bring harmony to those issues and bridge those divisions. But certainly last month I heard a lot about it. We had some tensions, and it does emerge from time to time in Brampton. We have to deal with tension between communities. I would say, by and large, the vast majority of the Sikh community and the Hindu community get along, but there are incidents that damage that sense of unity.
Mon temps est écoulé, je vous remercie.
My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McGregor, for 6 minutes.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Mayor Brown, I'd like to echo the comments of my colleagues to thank you for being here with us today. I appreciate your comments that you sincerely believe that the results of the leadership race were not affected by foreign interference. But I think our committee's main concern is that the inference that the attempt was even made in the first place. As you know, there was that reference in the NSECOP report. And we also know that, CBC's Radio Canada spoke to 5 anonymous sources from your campaign who individually and separately provided specific examples of how the Indian government was pressuring members of your campaign to not sell memberships, to make sure that you weren't invited to specific events. Now, I've never been in a leadership campaign myself, but I have been through 3 elections, and generally the staff try to insulate the candidate from the inner workings of a campaign office. But, if something's going wrong as a candidate, you can always kind of sense it. So I guess my question to you is, we have these allegations from these 5 anonymous sources who were a part of your leadership campaign. They have provided these specific examples. For you as a candidate, could you ever corroborate that? Were you ever aware that there was this undercurrent of inappropriate pressure being applied from agents of the Indian government?
Well, if you want to ask me about any aspects of that article, I could do my best to answer that honestly.
Okay, so what about the pressure to not sell memberships? Can you comment on that?
So a lot of what I heard was indirect, and I don't think it's fair to repeat hearsay. But in some limited examples, I would hear directly that it was. I'm not sure you would use the word foreign intervention. It would be more. And I think right now that the whole discussion of what is appropriate for a consul general and inappropriate, I think that assessment is still being determine. But I would hear, one example would be, the consul general says, "Did you see what your friend did? He was at Deep Sidhu's vigil. How can you explain that?" And so it would be more posing questions to sort of highlight some of the why they did not support positions that I had taken. And I would note in the case of the Deep Sidhu vigil, I had attended every vigil in my city that occurred at City Hall, and when there was grief in the community and grieving, that I tried to share in that sorrow.
And your campaign was ultimately disqualified before you had the ability to come to an actual vote to be on the ballot as a candidate. Would you have any reason to believe that the Indian government was in any way involved with the disqualification?
I have no evidence to that effect.
And is it correct, Michelle Rampal Garner, who is a currently serving member of Parliament, she was the co-chair of your campaign, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know, or are you able to inform this committee as to why she suddenly departed?
So I read in a CBC article that she departed because of foreign intervention. I don't believe that was the case. When I spoke to Michelle directly, she was very clear to me that the reason that she was departing was to run for the provincial leadership to replace Jason Kenney. At no time when we talked about her departing the campaign did she ever say it was because of pressure from the consul general. Where I think this may be where I think this is rooted it from is much earlier, not when she left, but it would have been, and this is a long time ago. This is 2022, and I'm swamped with work and events, and so I don't remember the exact dates correctly, but we had a conference call that would have been 4, 5, 6 weeks prior to that, where there was concern from MP Garner about some of the language that I was using, and in Gajoras and the membership drives, there was concern from I believe the consul general directly to the MP that I used the word Sikh nation, and so we had a conference call how to deal with that concern, and instead of using sorry.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off, but time is short, as you're very well aware. Just in my last minute, Mayor Brown, if you're a leader in your community, obviously, if the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service and the representatives of the federal government were to offer you the clearance necessary to receive a briefing, as a leader in your community, would you take that to better serve your community, to be better aware of the potential threats that might be posed there?
Well, I do get an annual briefing from CSIS. They offer that to big city mayors, and I've taken those briefings. The actual clearance necessary to take a deep dive. I would accept that clearance and would welcome any additional information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the second round. Mr. Lloyd for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, for being here today. And I think your statement that you gave before this committee and again today really speaks for itself. But I just want to confirm, given the partisan nature of this committee, do you believe that the Justice Hogue Commission, which has access to all the confidential information that is available, is really the appropriate forum to be dealing with the kind of questions that we might have here today?
I would certainly agree with that.
Now, you have stated in your written statement that was sent out that you've not been contacted by Justice Hogue or the Commission. Does that continue to be the case to this day?
Yeah, I have not been contacted by the Commission.
So, given the fact that Justice Hogue and that Commission has access to all of these top secret confidential documents, they know what the NSECOP report said, and they didn't deem it necessary to invite you or to seek your feedback at the Commission or to even summon you, as is in the case of your committee. Do you think that you really have any evidence that you feel will advance our study into this study?
And I think that's a question you'd have to ask that commission of why they didn't ask for my testimony. But as I said, I don't believe I have any personal evidence to add. Nothing new that it's already in public domain.
So I guess I'll give you an open-ended question here, Mayor Brown. You understand the purpose. You've been a parliamentarian for many years in the past. You know what these committees are here to do, and if we're putting together a study, any recommendations, given your experience, is there anything you'd like to provide to this committee? Any feedback?
Well, I do think that looking at ways to safeguard our democracy is important, and there is foreign interference that occurs, and so whether it's I would say, and it's not limited to India, but India is obviously a very high topic because of the extrajudicial killing in Surrey. But for a lot of countries, the ability to have a working relationship with the consular office is important because you want to go back home and you need a visa. Having that productive relationship is important. But I look at other instances, Sri Lanka. We're building a Tamil genocide memorial in Brampton, and we've been recipients of active intervention and opposition, obstruction, protest, coordinated by the Sri Lankan High Commission. There's an example where we believe our democratic efforts adopted by our entire council were being challenged and subverted by a foreign government. And so, I don't think it's limited to India, but I do think diaspora communities are struggling with some of the activity of foreign consular offices. I was reading a newspaper article recently where it said there was an educational session done in Ottawa recently on foreign diplomats of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate in terms of what crosses the line. I think that's healthy. And maybe some of those standards can be set by this committee to really help clarify what veers into the political, what veers into intimidation of the community in Canada.
I really appreciate that good feedback, Mayor Brown, and I think I've only got a little bit of time left. So I'll ask, you did mention that there's been significant tensions in your community in the wake of these allegations of the extrajudicial killing, and we know that these tensions are in communities, diverse communities across Canada. What do you think the federal government can do to try to reduce those tensions and bring harmony to our communities?
I think what the government of Canada can really do is to make sure that every community knows that they're safe in Canada, that if there is any intimidation or violence against any faith group, we're not going to stand for it in this country. If there's any intelligence that any individuals, any leaders of any community, their safety is at threat, they need to be protected. The fact that we saw the killing in Surrey is a failure of public safety in Canada, that he was not protected. I know individuals in Peel who have also had the duty, have been given the duty to be warned, and that's alarming. And I hope that steps are being taken by their RCMP, Public Safety, and CSIS to make sure that individuals are protected in this country. And so I think the reminder is to double down on those efforts to make sure those in Canada are safe from
in my last second or two,
yeah.
Mayor Brown, do you believe that foreign intervention actors have felt emboldened over the past few years under this Liberal government to take actions in Canada?
Well, I would hope in the last year it's the opposite. I would hope that because the activities were exposed, that they're not emboldened. And I only get feedback. I don't get intelligence shared from the government of Canada, but I know on a local level, with the Peel Police, the fact that it's been brought into the open, there's a level of relief by some that it's no longer sort of done behind the curtain, and that some of the people that had real fears that it's more in the public now.
Great. Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor Brown, for attending. I actually want to follow up on something that you said that I found quite interesting. You said that you were involved in a conference call where MP Rumble Garner, in answer to Mr. McGregor's question, had raised concerns that also came from the Council General that they were not comfortable with you using the term sick nation. So are you suggesting, or is it your understanding from that call that someone spoke to MP Rempel Garner raising the Consul General's concern about your language being used during the campaign?
I was going to say, first of all, I don't believe that's the reason that she left the campaign, but I believe.
Sorry, I didn't ask. I asked about the details of the conference call and your answer to Mr. McGregor about you being informed by your campaign team that there were concerns from the Consul General raised by MP Rempel Garner not to use the term sick nation. Can you please confirm that that is what was discussed on your conference call?
Correct. Do you want me to expand further?
Sure. If you can tell me the details of who asked MP Rempel Garner to raise the language you were being used.
So the concern that was raised was that I had used the term on a number of occasions, Sikh Nation, and the Consul General had expressed directly to MP Garner that was something that obviously they didn't agree with, that it could be viewed in nationalistic terms towards the Sikh community. And so at the conference call, I had a deputy national campaign manager, Jaskaran Sandhu, who we sort of assigned to talk to Michelle about it after the conference call. And what was agreed upon is that I wouldn't use the word Sikh Nation. I'd use the word Sikh Qom.
Do you think, sorry, I have limited time. Do you think it's appropriate for a foreign government to send a message to a sitting MP that you should be changing the language because it's not welcomed by that foreign nation? Do you think that's an appropriate election activity by a foreign government? And do you regret accepting their advice of changing your language, not based on your campaign or constituent feedback, but because the Consul General asked MP Rempel Garner to tell you that they did not appreciate that language? Do you think that's acceptable in a Canadian election race?
Well, I didn't get the chance to finish what I was saying before, but I said what we changed it to was Sikh Qom, which is the Punjabi word for nation. And it was.
Thank you. But my question was around, do you think it's appropriate for a foreign government to ask a sitting MP to speak as a co-chair on a leadership race to raise their objections to your campaign, not based on constituents, but based on that foreign government's opinion? Do you think I think that constitutes foreign interference pretty clearly? Foreign interference doesn't matter about the outcome. It's the intention to have that foreign government influence the actions in Canadian elections. Do you think that that was an appropriate action for a foreign government in a Canadian election?
I certainly think that the consul generals in India have been more robust in their opinions than some of us would be comfortable with.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you had acknowledged that's not something you're comfortable with. So you mentioned also earlier that you said that the Indian government, through the Consul General, had expressed displeasure previously with your positions on things. How specifically did they express displeasure? Did they, as articles are reporting, did they suggest that they were going to speak to volunteers about not signing up voters for you? Did they uninvite you from attending events? Did they suggest that they would provide funds and campaign support to other campaigns? How exactly did they show displeasure?
So I've never had a direct threat like that from the Indian government. So it's never been something as direct as saying, we're not going to, we're going to raise funds for someone else or tell people not to sign up memberships. But in previous occasions, when there's been positions that I have taken, that the government of India doesn't support, I would hear directly from the Consul General that
Don't you think
why they don't support it.
don't you think as an elected member, the only people that your position should be, the feedback you should be hearing from are the people that actually elect you?
Well, I would say what is the greatest determination for me is what's the best interest of my residents, and to do what is in their best interest, to fight for what is in their best interest. But I would say it is not unusual in Canada to have consul generals from multiple nations that are very vocal in their advocacy.
Do you think
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. We'll come back to you. Mr. Fortin pour 2 minutes et demi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown, along the same lines of questioning, is there anyone else in your entourage who intervened to pass messages on to you that came from the Consul General or the Government of India?
So, that would probably be the only example where we had a discussion about a concern directly from the Consul General. It would be, concerns that were raised to me were more policy based on positions that I had taken.
Et quels sont ces...
And what are those other interventions? Do you have any examples in mind?
I have a long history with India, as I chaired the Parliamentary Association for 9 years. But in terms of more recent examples, when they passed the Citizenship Amendment Act in India, which I thought was discriminatory towards Muslims, I had responded to a press inquiry about, and I had said that I didn't support it. That obviously left organizations that represented India and Canada upset, and they relayed that to me directly, and the Consul General at the time relayed that to me directly, how they believed my position on the CAA was wrong. And other instances that I gave recently were the farmers' protest and, of course, the glorification of Deep Sidhu in Canada.
That's more recent. Do you have the date or the month, the time when this happened?
So the Citizenship Amendment Act, I believe, was 2019, 2020. I think the farmers' protest was probably 2020, 2021. I don't have the exact dates in front of me. And then the Deep Sidhu vigil of when his memory was celebrated was, I believe, in January of 2022.
Et à aucun moment, vous...
And on your side, at no time did you feel uncomfortable regarding those interventions?
I wouldn't say. I've just been used to it for a long time. Having dealt with the Indian government on a number of issues for a long time, I'm used to them being aggressive in stating their position. It doesn't mean you change your own position. Certainly, when it came to the recognition in 1984, I did not change my position. I didn't change my position in regards to the Citizenship Amendment Act or the farmers' protest. But I'm used to their organizations and the government of India in Canada being very clear of what they think of those issues.
Merci, M. Brown. C'est déjà terminé.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. My time's up.
2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor Brown, in our last exchange, I had asked you with the leadership position you hold in your...
Sorry,
Sorry, I'll start over again.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Thank
have
you.
the
Now I
microphone
can hear
on.
you. Yeah.
Let me just reset. In our last exchange, I had asked you, because of the leadership position you hold within your community, that if you were ever offered to have a specialized briefing on foreign interference from the federal government, from CSIS officials, that you would take that. If you had won the leadership race and found yourself in the House of Commons as the leader of the Conservative Party, would you still hold that same view that as a leader of a federal party, given the grave nature and threat of foreign interference in Canada, would you still hold the view that it would be incumbent upon you as a federal party leader to receive briefings so that you could be best equipped to help out in any way that you can?
Well, I don't think it's helpful to get into hypotheticals, and I think one of my concerns about coming before a parliamentary committee is that everything, has a sort of partisan tinge to the questions. And I know, there's been concerns expressed about Mr. Poilievre not accepting a security uh, briefing or clearance that you were speaking of. And so, like, I don't want to be part of any contrast. Just to say, I think everyone benefits from as much information as possible. And as you can tell, I'm trying not to be drawn into partisan debates because my focus is 100% on the people of Brampton.
And I think we'll just leave your answer as it is. I respect that. I guess maybe I'll end with this. I only have a minute left, but you are very well aware of the threats that are being posed currently in Canada, specifically from the government of India. We certainly have other foreign adversaries who are doing their utmost to foment dissension and unrest in Canada and interfere in any way that we can. Maybe I'll just give you another opportunity as a mayor of a very large urban center with a very highly like a high population of racialized Canadians. What is your hope on maybe some of the recommendations you'd like to see this committee have in the federal government? We just want to look for more opportunities where we can collaborate at all political levels to make sure that we have a united front in confronting this very real threat to Canada.
Well, I think it's fair to say that diaspora communities in Canada are concerned. And so, what is the consequence of foreign intervention? What is the consequence if a consul general crosses the line or goes into the gray? I think, in the example of the extrajudicial killings and the dispute, in the extreme case, you see a diplomat removed from Canada. But what safeguards are there for instances that may be less definitive? And so I think there needs to be clarity in terms of what is appropriate conduct in Canada and what isn't. And I think there's a lot of foreign intervention that is in the gray that I think would be helpful for my residents, and I think many Canadians, if it was made more clear of what is not tolerated in Canada.
Thank you. Mr. Motz, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mayor Brown, for being here. I just want to follow up on a line of questioning that my colleague, Mr. Lloyd, asked you about Commissioner Hogue. Now, as you are aware, Commissioner Hogue, the commission was set up and all parties agreed to that to investigate the foreign interference in our democracy. You also indicated in that line of questioning that, and you confirmed in your opinion that the commission is the appropriate forum to deal with that with this issue. Now, you've also stated that you have not been contacted by Justice Hogue, and as Mr. Lloyd was asking the question, I guess I just want to clarify. Justice Hogue had access or has access to all unredacted documents from CSIS in regards to this matter of foreign interference. Do you believe that the commission would have made contact with you should there been any evidence from any source, any intelligence whatsoever, that your campaign or the campaign of any Conservative leadership, 2022 leadership candidacy race was involved or had some impact on foreign interference?
I think that's a question best posed to Justice Hogue, but if asked to attend, I think that would have been the appropriate forum to attend, and I would have attended. But as I've said publicly before, I don't believe I have any new information myself to be added to this discussion, an investigation that isn't already in the public domain.
I wanted to get into kind of the political end for you civically. As has been indicated, Brampton has grown dramatically over the last decade or more, and what I've been struck by is, you are not immune to violence there. On November the 3rd, there was some demonstrations that occurred at both a Hindu and a Sikh temple, and the town or the city of Brampton was forced, in my opinion, to approve a bylaw prohibiting these nuisance demonstrations anywhere near places of worship. Now, I appreciate this is not the first occurrence that happened there, but what precipitated the city of Brampton from pursuing this sort of approach?
So the goal of this bylaw was to make sure that there's a right and wrong place to protest. And my goal in introducing that bylaw was that places of worship should be safe spaces, and that whether you go to Gujora, a mandir, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, everyone should be able to go and pray free of violence, intimidation, and harassment. I know we have a constitutionally protected right to protest in this country, but we also have a charter protected right to religious freedom. And I think too often that right is trampled upon. And if you are, and there's legitimate protest, and if you want to protest the government of India, you can protest the government of India. I just don't want to. If you want to protest the government of Russia, you want to protest the government of China, you have that right. I just don't want to see anyone who is on their way to prayer circumvented in their efforts to do so. And so in our bylaw, I thought we took the right balance. We protected the right to prayer. But if a place of worship has a banquet hall and there's going to be a foreign government rally in that banquet hall, that would not be protected. It wouldn't restrict the right to protest. It is the basic religious freedom that is protected.
And fair enough. So I know you don't want to become political, but do you believe, or partisan in your political responses, but to me, when a city has to provide its own civic ordinances to try and deal with something that should be handled, through federal legislation, I find that troubling. Now, I appreciate that the city of Brampton felt necessary to protect the residents of Brampton. Do you believe that these protests had anything to do and link back to Indian foreign interference?
So the tensions have been heightened ever since the RCMP revelations about the nature of the extrajudicial killing. And so a lot of the protests are linked to you'll hear organizers of the protest say their opposition is that they're not protesting the Hindu community, they're protesting the Indian government. And there's been responsive protests where they're protesting at a Gurdwara. And so what I found is that it simply just got out of control, and we needed better guidelines. And so protesting a foreign government is a legitimate protest, but these counter protest and protest against each other in front of a place of worship, is just it created an environment, an ecosystem that was ripe for ugly behavior. And unfortunately, that's what we saw. But I go back to what I said before, and that's that the incidents where there was violence were a very few. There was very few examples, and they were bad actors, and they've since been charged, and hopefully they face the full consequences of the law. 99% of each community is kind and respectful of our laws.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Gerritsen for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for being here today, Mr. Brown. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to be precise, and I would request that you do the same in your responses. Before coming to this meeting today, did you receive any contact from Pierre Poilievre's office or any of his staff, or anybody that might be associated with him in regards to your
I did not speak to Pierre Poilievre or any of his staff.
In preparation for today, today's meeting?
In preparation of today's meeting.
My second question. So when we get to the CBC, there are 5 individuals who are high up in your campaign who specifically said that Ms. Rempel-Garner was contacted by foreign diplomats and encouraged not to participate in your campaign. Are you telling this committee that you're unaware of that?
So the nature of the conversation.
Just a yes or no, Mr. Brown. Were you aware that any of them contacted her, asking her to withdraw from your campaign?
Not withdraw from my campaign.
So the allegation that is made by these 5 individuals, you are claiming to be false. Yes or no? Yes or no?
What you asked me to assume that those 5 people made that allegation. I'm not sure they did.
Well, I mean, if you don't trust the CBC, the CBC says that they did. My question is very direct. My question is very direct. 5 individuals came forward that were part of your campaign in senior positions in your campaign and said that Michelle Rempel-Garner, who is one of your co-chairs, was asked by a foreign diplomat to withdraw her support from your campaign. And you're saying that you're unaware of that.
I don't believe that she was asked to withdraw her support. I think it was about the language I used.
So we have established by what you've said here today that MP Rempel-Garner was in contact with consulates, foreign consulates, the Indian consulate, and that she did relay that information to you. So do you believe, personally, your own belief, that she was contacted by the consul and asked not to participate in your campaign?
I don't believe she was asked not to participate in my campaign. I think she was the recipient of an angry phone call over the language I was using.
So you don't believe what those 5 individuals in your campaign said?
Well, I think you'd have to speak to those individuals yourself because that's not something that I have heard.
So we've established that she's been in contact with the Consul General. You've already said that. You said that she's even relayed information to you from them. But yet we're to assume that it's unlikely that she was also contacted and asked not to participate in your campaign. And even to the extent that there was a conference call that she participated in where she said the same thing. Is that correct?
Yes, it was never brought to my attention that was, she was asked to leave the campaign.
What about your 2017 Ontario campaign? Vikram Singh, why was he, in your opinion, disqualified?
So I'd say that was a nomination contestant in Hamilton, Dundas, Ancaster, and he was someone the Indian government obviously was not supportive of. He wasn't disqualified, though.
So in that in that nomination, I understand that there was a settlement, and you probably signed an NDA there as well. I would remind you that you're not subject to that NDA while here at committee, and you are protected by privilege. In your opinion, was there any reason to believe that Vikram Singh was disqualified based on a foreign diplomat or foreign entity encouraging him to be disqualified?
So I believe the Indian government is very vocal in candidates they believe are worthy of support and those that are not. Vikram Singh was not someone that they supported.
When you say worthy of support, you believe that they're worthy of support on Canadian soil?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, and by your own admission, you already said that they acted often these consul generals act in an aggressive manner, and that they do not make you comfortable. I mean, if that's not foreign interference, then what is, Mr. Brown?
Well, I think you're paraphrasing.
No, I'm actually not. I'm actually quoting exactly what you said. You said, quote, they did not make you feel comfortable. And you referred to their engagement with you as aggressive. How is that not foreign interference?
I think certainly some of their actions are in the gray.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garretson. We move on to the third round now. Ms. Dancho for 5 minutes. We'll come back to you, sir.
We have 2 hours.
No, it's you, Ms. Dancho, because we're on to the third round.
No, I'm saying who's after them.
Oh, then Liberals.
And then
Then Mr. Fote. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your testimony so far today. Again, I know you represent quite a diverse community, and you've expressed today that there has been, to put it in my own words, what you said, like anxieties in that community, concerns in that community. Do you feel, and again, if I'm thinking about foreign interference and thinking about foreign governments and intimidating Canadians, we seem to be seeing this from perhaps the Indian government. We're seeing this from the Chinese Communist government. We're seeing this, frankly, there's many governments that seem to be intimidating various Canadians and various diaspora communities. Do you feel that the federal government bears any responsibility for the level of that interference that we're seeing in various communities, including many in Brampton?
So I think that question has been posed in a similar manner already, and my response was, I think we can all do more, locally, provincially, and federally to guard against foreign intervention and make sure Canadians feel safe in Canada and are not victims of that intimidation or influence.
What do you think the federal government could be doing, if anything?
Well, I think part of the starting point is a clear education on those who are serving as diplomatic representatives in Canada of what is appropriate behavior and behavior that is inappropriate with the laws we have in Canada. Clearly, there are diplomats that need that education.
Mm-hmm. And certainly, as you all know, we've had quite a serious situation. Of course, allegations that individuals in Canada were murdered in connection with a foreign government, notably India, and the purposes of why you're here today, just in the conversation of India. And then, of course, we had the Prime Minister get up in the House of Commons in quite an unprecedented manner and call out the Indian government make these allegations. And then a few months later, the situation seemed to escalate quite considerably, where the RCMP had provided duties to warrant to various individuals. I believe almost a dozen individuals were told that their lives were under threat from alleged connections to the Indian government out to get them. We saw this happening in the United States as well. So, certainly I think objectively the federal government's actions have failed to prevent a lot of this, given it escalated, in fact, after the Prime Minister took that action in the House of Commons. Are you getting the sense that your community is feeling safer over the last few years or less safe?
Once again, I feel that I'm trying not to be drawn into the partisan debates that occur in Ottawa, but I would say there is a level of there's a sentiment that residents are concerned. Diaspora communities are concerned. I do think it's helpful, though, that the information was put into the public domain. I think sometimes when you hear diaspora communities saying that they were targets of foreign intervention, they felt helpless. They felt that they were being treated as if their allegations were crazy. I think the fact that it's been brought into the mainstream is helpful, and so I do think it's helpful that allegations were made public and legitimized.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. What are you hoping to see out of the Justice Hope Commission? Anything that you think may be helpful for your community or others that are experiencing foreign interference and threats in Canada?
Well, I know there's a lot of the Justice Hope Commission work that is done in camera, and if there are examples of foreign intervention where foreign actors have subverted our democracy, intimidated Canadians, harassed Canadians, hopefully they're held accountable and that we have safeguards that are put into place that would prevent that type of action.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all the questions I have.
Great. Sancho, I have Ms. O'Connell for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Following up on some of your testimony already, you did mention that MP Rempel-Garner talked to you and relayed the message. In fact, it changed your campaign language and your explanation. It's my understanding. My Punjabi is not great, but I do know that the change didn't mean Sikh nation, it meant Sikh community. And so, in fact, the language around or the concerns raised did in fact change the outcome of messaging from your campaign. But you mentioned the angry phone call that Michelle Rempel-Garner received. Did she express anything about that phone call other than just changing the language from Sikh nation?
So when you're a candidate for leadership, you're saying busy is an understatement. And so when incidents are brought up, you try to deal with them as promptly and as quickly and swiftly as you can. In that case, it was Harkirat Dada, who's a lawyer, and Jasker and Sandhu, who were assigned to speak to
Sorry, I'm
Michelle,
limited on
about
time,
it.
so I'm curious about that phone call. What else, if there was anything expressed in that angry phone call to MP Rumpel Garner?
Well, and I was going to say, you should speak to Jaskrin or her curate about that, because they were the ones who had to spend 45 minutes on a phone going over it. And the way it was explained to me, and like you, I don't speak Punjabi, but it was explained to me from Jaskrin that both terms meant the same thing. And so we were not losing, we were not diminishing the sentiment that we were trying to share of
Fair enough.
allyship. Yeah.
Thank you. And so earlier this week in the House, I actually asked your former, he would have been the caucus chair for your campaign, MP Seaback, about why in March he announced his support for your campaign, and then I believe it was June decided to support Pierre Poilievre. Fine, that's his right to do. But I asked him the question why, and he said he was friends with you for over 20 years, but that he didn't share your vision for Canada. Did he ever tell you what part of your vision for Canada he didn't support?
So that's a question you'd have to ask Kyle.
I did, but did he ever tell you he no longer, because at one point he shared your vision for this country, and a few short months later he said he did not share your vision for the country. I'm wondering if he ever told you that, why, and in particular, was it anything about your position on things like going to some of these memorials, on some of the things that, as you said, were upsetting the Indian government? I'm curious what he told you.
I don't believe he never shared that with me. I think it would be the quick answer. And I would say, one thing that Kyle and I talked about a fair bit was my opposition to Bill 21. And so, I think being a former Brampton MP, Kyle was also close to some of the communities that I worked with.
So he never told you why he was leaving?
He never said it was because of any disagreement on vision or any foreign lobbying. Yeah.
So what he said to me in the House the other day about not sharing your vision, I guess, is unfortunately news to you after a 20-year friendship. That's sad, I think. But I guess politics is a challenge for friendships like that. So I want to get back to some of the other things that have been stated. My colleague, Mr. Gerritsen, brought up the 5 individuals that are anonymous. So fair enough, you may not know who they are, but there was a suggestion that there was a specific conference call that you were on where issues were being raised about India's displeasure with your campaign, and the concerns around not selling memberships or encouraging people to not sell memberships. Are you saying that you were never part of a conference call where these issues were discussed?
Part of the conference call that I was part of related to the use of the term Sikh Nation, not about selling memberships.
And then you mentioned earlier to Mr. Gerritsen again in the Ontario leadership campaign and the in this instance, the Indian government making it very known when they don't feel, quote, of a worthy candidate. Did you become an unworthy candidate to the Indian government?
And so it wasn't the Ontario leadership in 2017. The Ontario leadership was 2014, 2015. I think what Mr. Gerritsen was referring to was nomination campaigns.
Fair enough. But did you become an unworthy candidate in the eyes of the Indian government in your federal leadership campaign?
I think that's a question you'd have to ask the Indian government. I can't analyze their sentiments.
But in your opinion, you said you knew your relationship was quite strained. How did you know that unless they expressed it to you?
It certainly didn't express it to me during the leadership campaign, but I know, from the years probably 2016 to 2022, there was a number of issues that caused friction, and I mentioned those issues already in my responses.
Thank you. And in preparation,
Thank you, Mr. Connell. We're a little bit over time. Come from me, Mr. Fortin.
As promised, Mr. Fortin for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown, I was listening to you, and I understand that you've understand the issue of foreign interference. You made a distinction between the right to protest and disagreement on different issues in Canada. That's freedom of expression in Canada. And you said interfering in activities in a temple is not acceptable. And that's a type of interference, really. So I'd like to hear your views about the fact that at some point you had decided as mayor of Brampton to fund a protest against Bill 21 in Quebec, the bill on secularism, and that the state should not get involved in religious issues, that each citizen should practice the religion of their choice as they see fit. You didn't agree with that legislation. That's your freedom of complete choice. But you decided to get involved in that debate and invest money of the city of Brampton to protest against the Quebec legislation. Isn't that a kind of interference?
Well, the city of Brampton, the province of Ontario is not a foreign entity. This is a legal challenge that's occurring in Canada, and a legal challenge that goes to the Supreme Court will be a precedent on all Canadians. I still maintain my opposition to Bill 21.
Oui, mais votre opposition, mais vous dites que c'était pas une.
Yes, but you say this wasn't foreign interference. But with all due respect, Mr. Brown, the city of Brampton is not located in Quebec. What goes on in the province of Quebec, I really don't see how that is any concern of the city of Brampton. Am I wrong?
Oh, it very much is the concern of the city of Brampton and all Canadians. If this
Donc, à ce compte-là, le gouvernement indien serait juste.
So in that way, the government of India is justified in getting involved in your conservative leadership campaigns. The same reasoning, isn't it?
I think the comparison is preposterous. The notion that foreign intervention is the same to a legal challenge in Canada over the interpretation of the Charter on Religious Freedom.
L'ingérence étrangère, c'est se mêler de ce qui nous regarde pas.
Foreign interference is not minding your own business. And I think if the Indian government wants you to change your position in a leadership race in a Canadian federal party, it's not its business. It shouldn't do that. Similarly, if a Quebec town decides to intervene in a Quebec case, that's one thing. But an Ontario town, that's a concern. Seems to me, if you can't make that distinction, I wonder if you can make it for the Indian authorities. It's up to you to tell me.
A legal precedent in Canada affects us all. I don't want ever there to be a case in Ontario where someone loses their job based on wearing an article of faith. The fact that you could see
Ça s'appliquait pas en Ontario, M. Brown. Ça s'applique au Québec seulement.
It wouldn't have applied in Ontario, Mr. Brown. It only applied in Quebec.
It could be a legal precedent set in Canada if the Supreme Court
Thank you, Mr.
sides on the side of Quebec. That's a precedent that affects all of us, and I think it was an atrocious decision that circumvents religious freedom in this country.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor Brown, so just to recap, I mean, we have the reference to a conservative leadership race in the SECU report. There are those 5 anonymous sources who claim to have been a part of your leadership campaign talking about foreign interference. I'm curious, though, in the post-mortem, like after your involvement in the leadership campaign was over, did you ever receive a post-mortem briefing from CSIS officials at all, like in the months or years following your involvement in the leadership race?
I have not been briefed by CSIS on the 2022 Conservative leadership race.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, we have taken some steps legislatively in the Parliament of Canada with Bill C-70, which will hopefully fix that problem for CSIS in the future. I guess that leads me to my next question. I've referenced the legislative changes that we've put into place sort of to bring the CSIS Act and the Security of Information Act up to speed to counter the threat. But, looking back, is there anything you wish could have been done differently with these allegations? I guess, what kind of safeguards would you like to see put in place to make sure that political parties in their internal mechanisms are not being affected by foreign interference?
Well, you're asking me a question of how I think you could better safeguard our institutions. I think a starting point would be
Sorry,
nominations.
just political parties specifically. Yes, institutions, but yeah.
Yeah, no, political parties nominations. I think nominations in many ridings in this country are where the MP is elected. I think there's a lot of ridings where the general election is not the real campaign; it's the nomination, and increasingly nominations. There's fewer candidates approved to run. Sometimes only one candidate approved to run, and so I think if Elections Canada ran nominations, that would be an additional safeguard against foreign intervention.
Thank you. I believe that's time, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Motz, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate your testimony so far, Mayor Brown. Just a commentary first. I find it really interesting to watch Liberals make themselves dizzy chasing their own tails, trying to find something that doesn't exist with no evidence to support whatever they're trying to find. So given the serious nature of foreign interference, it's perplexing that the Liberals would politicize this issue, single you out, purely based on your political affiliation. And I know you don't want to be partisan. You don't have to answer that unless you wish to do so. However, there is something that I have found or seen in the media and you deal with every single day, and that is the crime that's going on in your city. I can't imagine the pressure and the frustration you feel as a city council, as the mayor of that city. And can you explain to us what you deal with the gun violence that's happening there, the auto theft, the affordability crisis, and you're sitting here being sidelined on a political game, it appears?
Well, I would say, I was very critical about the response on auto thefts in this country, but I'm a fan of not just criticizing, but providing solutions. And in terms of auto thefts, I was asking for scanners for shipping containers. We've now received the first 2 scanners, and so I'm helpful for that assistance. So I'm going to try to work with any party, any government to get results for my residents. And auto thefts finally are going down. So we made some progress by working collaboratively there. We still need to work on the bail system that lets too many of these offenders out after committing an auto theft, but we are making progress, and I'm hopeful for more progress.
Thank you very much. That's all I got.
Mr. Motz, you still have 3 minutes. And
I could take it.
Ms. Dancho.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. And I just want to give you the opportunity to highlight some of the primary issues in the Sikh diaspora community in Brampton. Can you outline some of those for this committee?
So I think today we've spoken about one issue, which is concern about foreign intervention and intimidation. But I think the concerns of Sikh Canadians are similar to the concerns of all Canadians. I think there's concerns about public safety. I think there's concerns about affordability, the cost of living. And so I think the concerns that Canadians have in common are much more similar. And sometimes, we can get lost in silos. And what I find in Brampton is that there may be many different communities, but when it comes down to my job as mayor, they're probably all concerned about making sure we have enough police officers and that property taxes don't go up beyond the pace they can afford them. And usually there's much more concerns and frustrations. Hopes and aspirations are much more similar.
Thank you. And I also have the pleasure of representing many Sikh Canadians, and they're some of the hardest working, generous people. And but I have heard from them, and maybe you've heard this as well, that they certainly came to Canada for freedom and opportunity, and also just figured that Canada would be safe and secure. I'm getting the sense in that community from what they've told me that they no longer feel that way because of the issue we're talking about, but also because of the public safety issues broadly. Are you getting that sense as well?
I think public safety is a big issue right now. It's why in Peel we're adding the most police officers we've ever added. I think there are many tools in the toolkit that need to be used to address this. But one issue I think has alarmed Canadians of Indian ancestry is the issue of extortions. That's something we've struggled with. We've had in Peel Region, since we set up our extortion task force, 70 extortion attempts. We've made 23 arrests, and there is concern that some of the extortions are linked to foreign criminal entities as well. And so I think that's an issue that has in Vancouver, Surrey, Edmonton, and in Peel Region alarmed and scared the community.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Dancho. Move on to Mr. Garrettson for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Brown, for being here today and talking with us and being candid. One of the things that's developed out of Parliament, perhaps since you were here, is there seems to be a precedent that's been set to invite people or summon people before the bar of the House of Commons for not telling the truth. So it's always nice to have somebody who's candid here and who's willing to be honest and forthright. My question, I asked you when I started the last time about Pierre Poilievre or his office, any contact with you prior to today's meeting. What about the Conservative Party of Canada or anybody representing them or anybody relaying any messages to you? Any contact from anybody in preparation for today's meeting?
So there's only two MPs I spoke to. I spoke to MP Doug Shipley, who is a personal friend, about a family matter. And I also spoke to MP Equinder Gahir, who is your chair and someone that I've got great respect for, and is a local Peel Region MP. And more in case of both of them, was more that you're coming to.
And I'm super surprised. And I'm super surprised that Mr. Shipley's not here today. He's a member of this committee, yet he didn't even want to be
Point
here.
of order, Mr. Chair. I don't believe that's in order.
No, that's only in the House.
Don't believe that's in order.
Did my
I also corroborate what Ms. O'Connell just said. Having read the rules recently, it's a rule on the House floor, not in committee.
Who stopped my time, I imagine. So, Mr. Brown, let's go back to some of the comments that were made by senior officials in your campaign. So one individual said, supporters from the Hindu community were being told that they were not to allowed to sign up members for Patrick Brown by officials of the Indian consulate. Now, I know, and you've already told us, that you're unaware of that comment, but out of curiosity, would you consider that foreign interference if that had been the case? And if that is proven, would you be concerned that your campaign was interfered with by a foreign government?
So I think that would meet the threshold of certainly being foreign interference.
You think it would meet the threshold, right?
Correct.
Would you say that the people that you brought into your campaign were trustworthy people? That, I mean, obviously, if they were in senior positions of your campaign, you would trust them, right?
I think we had some great people involved in the campaign.
Yeah, and if it is true that these individuals were from your campaign, then, I mean, there's no reason not to believe them, right?
Well, I think you'd have to speak to them directly. And what I was trying to say.
No, that's not what I'm asking you, Mr. Brown. I'm not asking you about speaking to them. I'm saying you trust the people in your campaign. You think that they're honorable people. And you if they say something, it should be believed. And I think you've already made that clear, correct?
I think that's fair to say that I think they're good, trustworthy people.
Yeah, something else that one of them said was, it was also made clear to organizers of events that Indian consulates had told them you can't invite Patrick Brown to these diaspora kind of events where the consulate is going to be involved. Were you aware that you were not allowed to go to events where the consulate was being involved?
There was one event mentioned in that CBC article that I can share. I was disinvited to that event.
So let's pick up on that for a second, Mr. Brown. So you are aware of this event, and whoever this anonymous source was aware of the event. Therefore, it must mean that these people were actually part of your campaign. I mean, how else could they have known about the event that you have also just said you knew about? I mean, I think it's reasonable to assume that the sources were actually close and high up in your campaign. Would you not agree?
I think in the case of that event,
sorry, let me rephrase that. You've made it very clear that you trust the people in your campaign. They're aware of this issue, anonymous sources. You're aware of the issue because you just admitted it to us here. So therefore, the individuals that are being cited as sources by the CBC must have been close to your campaign. Would you not agree with that? What other conclusion could you possibly draw?
I think you'd have to ask those sources.
I don't know. I'm asking you if you draw the same conclusion as me.
So what I'd say is I can answer any question about the incidents that were raised. And
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like, just thinking about this, think about it for a second. I'm drawing a conclusion that since you knew about the fact you were disinvited and they knew about the fact that you were disinvited, then obviously they had to have been very close to your campaign, and therefore I think it's safe to say we can treat these anonymous sources as being legitimate. I mean, I think that that's a fairly easy assessment to conclude on. You must agree with that, right?
You're asking me to agree with the assumptions you're making?
Yes, I am. Would you agree?
In the case of the event is, I think in the case of that event, there is a level of accuracy there.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Dancho, for 5 minutes, and we're in the fourth round now.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, for being here and sitting through that last round of questions. I'm not going to apologize on behalf of the Liberals, but I mean, that was quite embarrassing. I would say, though, Mr. Brown, again, that I think that there's some serious allegations being lobbed at you here. Any comments of how that's the seriousness of which you feel some of these questions are coming? I mean, I just feel that's kind of silly at this point, but I'm just over to you for your thoughts.
Well, I think sometimes it's difficult to answer a long preamble with a yes, no. And so I think sometimes the nature of these questions are not a simple yes, no.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I just want to go back again to some of the concerns you're hearing from your community. Again, this is certainly, as you know, a study on the interference or alleged interference in Canada from India. And you have outlined quite a bit, in fact, about how your community is feeling and the anxieties they're having over this. I'm hearing that as well. But you did mention Peel Region in your last round with me. And we do know that the stats from police say that one woman is strangled every single day in Peel. Do you have any concerns? I mean, I'm sure obviously you do about the violence against women you're seeing, but how has your community reacted to this really quite revolting statistic in Canada in 2024? It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's horrifying. You know, we've declared a gender-based violence epidemic in Peel Region. The city of Brampton has as well. We've got a councillor, Rowena Santos, and Councillor Navjeet Brar, who have been quite outspoken and in raising concerns around this epidemic we're struggling with. You know, I sit on the Peel Police Services Board, and I look at all the statistics. The one that I find most harrowing is, as a society, we have not effectively dealt with the rise, and it continues. I believe when I started 6 years ago as mayor, I looked at the number for IPV, intimate partner violence, and it was 7,000 calls a year. I think we're up to close to 20,000 now. And I don't think that's unique to Peel Region. We're seeing that across the country, where there is an alarming rise in intimate partner violence. And we need to, as a society, find out how we can deal with this, because the current approach isn't working.
Did you say 20,000 cases of intimate partner violence? Sorry, just
20,000 calls
on intimate partner violence. Wow. I'm very sorry that's happening in your community, and I had heard some of the statistics of what we're seeing. And of course, as you may know, according to the data, Canada is seeing a 75% increase in sexual assaults against women over the last 9 years, 120% increase in sexual violations against children, a 50% increase in violent crime, and 116% increase in gun crime. So it sounds, unfortunately, that your community is not safe from this either. I mean, this is the Public Safety and National Security Committee. Do you think that the issue of intimate partner violence and the violence we're seeing against women and children generally would be worth studying?
Absolutely. You know, we have some with some leaders in the Peel Police that I believe, if you had that study, would have a lot to offer.
We would very much like the opportunity to bring them here. And in fact, I have made many efforts to bring forward that issue at public safety. Of course, I feel, and as do my Conservative colleagues, that it is one of certainly the most pressing issues Canada is facing. The epidemic, as many municipalities, in fact 94, including yours, have called it an epidemic, intimate partner violence, and the province of Nova Scotia, the entire province. So we are making every effort to bring forward that study here. Unfortunately, I think Liberals, unfortunately, would rather talk about the questions we saw in the last round with you. So I do believe there's some misplaced priorities in that regard, but they can talk about whatever they wish. That is up to them. Mr. Brown, just to conclude in our last minute, can you just provide, I know you're a man of, you said you're a man of action, you want to take action and not play politics. Can you just outline a few things for the committee that you think could be done to address intimate partner violence in addition to the things you've already said?
We need a greater response to a greater capacity to respond in Canada. I think one thing that's not necessarily appreciated is that in many big cities, there are more 911 calls than officers able to respond. One thing I found alarming from the Peel Police Union is that there are intimate partner violence calls that go unresponded to, simply because there's no manpower to keep up with human resources able to keep up with the volume of priority one calls. And so each year there are more priority one calls that get pushed on the back burner. And I find that alarming. And so how do we, knowing how stressed police resources are, what can we do to better equip police forces to deal with this growing volume? And, there are things the federal government can do. I look at the amount of work we deal with in terms of repeat offenders. That's an area that I think the government of Canada could certainly help.
Great. Thank you. Ms. O'Connell, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor Brown. It's not surprising that the Conservatives can't seem to come up with questions about foreign interference when it's involving India. I sat through many studies on foreign interference where they thought this was the most important issue, but now when it's involving India, they can't even fill speaking spots on that. And you've confirmed today that a sitting MP, Michelle Rempel-Garner, was contacted by the Consul General in India. Just a 45-minute debrief of an angry phone call is how it was described, about terminology around sick nation. Your campaign that was expressed to you. Your campaign ultimately changed that language. You mentioned how some of these interactions have been aggressive, have not made you comfortable. And if it did, in fact, some of the allegations in the media reporting were true, you acknowledge that that would have constituted foreign interference. And Conservatives don't seem to be worried about that in one bit. I think that's pretty telling in itself. But getting to the questions to you, Mayor Brown, about something my colleague, Mr. Gerritsen, asked you, what specifically event were you invited to and then disinvited to in your community that you acknowledged was accurate?
It's the Republic Day event they have in January each year.
Thank you. And when were you informed that you were no longer welcome at that event?
I think it was probably about a few days before or a week before. It was, but it was in regards to I think disappointment over my attendance at the Deep Sidhu vigil.
Who told you that you were no longer invited as a result of your attendance at because of going to the vigil?
It was one of the members of the organization that ran that event.
And did they mention to you that anyone had contacted them about, from the Indian Consul General, about their displeasure for you attending that vigil?
No.
It was the organization itself uninvited you for attending a vigil in the community?
Yeah, they never mentioned to me if they received correspondence from the Consul General's office.
So it's not to say that they didn't, they just never mentioned that to you.
Correct.
Thank you. Were there other events you were uninvited to as a result of your position that also correlated to what you said the Indian government also did not appreciate?
I'm sure there were some other events that I wasn't invited to from organizations that do advocacy on behalf of the Indian government in Canada. I'm sure there's a few Canada India Foundation events that I
but disinvited. This is kind of a big issue. You're a leadership candidate in a federal party. To be disinvited to something is quite significant.
No, there's not another example of one that I'm aware of that I was disinvited.
Thank you. And in regards to your campaign structure, I would assume for most leadership campaigns, even nominations, the selling of memberships is a priority. You would have captains, I would assume. Did you have captains based on different community groups, different diaspora communities, different neighborhoods? This is usually how it's done. Did you have any specifically captains selling memberships around diaspora communities? And if so, what were they?
Absolutely. That's the nature of leadership campaigns and nomination campaigns, as you referenced. You've got membership captains in different professions, different cultural groups, different faith groups, every province, every city. So absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just running out of time. Did anybody or did it ever reach to you through your team? Were there any diaspora community captains that were told they were no longer comfortable, just like the invitation that you were uninvited to? Did anyone relay to you that there were captains that were no longer going to continue selling memberships for you?
So a lot of what you hear would be hearsay, and so I don't want to, unless I hear it directly. I don't want.
I mean, but that's the nature of campaigns, right? I hear this volunteer here wants, our government or our party to go this way. I mean, that's the nature of how we work in this business and develop policy. Did it ever come to you that a captain was no longer going to sell memberships for you?
It was only communicated to me directly, where someone would say the Consul General was upset over your position on this, not that they weren't going to sell memberships. Anything additional would have been through hearsay.
But why did you connect the two? The Consul General being upset when I asked about the selling of memberships.
Well, I guess if the Consul General's upset, it might diminish someone's enthusiasm if they have a good relationship with the Consul General.
I see, so I misunderstood. Someone came to you and said they were selling memberships, and they said the Consul General is upset.
Never in the context of selling memberships, but it would come back to me that positions I had taken, the Consul General was not happy with.
With members of your team, campaign team?
Yeah, with people that were supporting me.
Right. So the Consul General reached out to members supporting you and members of your campaign team saying that they were upset. Don't you think that is making it pretty clear their position? You don't have to say to someone, I don't want you to support this candidate because of X, Y, and Z. The implied threat is there when it's a person in a position of power like a Consul General would be.
I think you just made a statement. Was there a question there too?
Do you agree?
I think the relationship with the Consul Generals is important for diaspora communities because of the ability to quickly access visas to visit your home country.
And so that importance would be an implied threat that if a Consul General is unhappy and upset, that their support still to support a candidate that has made the Indian government upset could in fact implicate or affect a visa application?
I think that's something that some members of the community would be concerned about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. Mr. Forte, 2 minutes et demi.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown? What Radio Canada told us is the Indian government asked that people not support you, not sell your membership cards, not invite you to certain events, and undermine your campaign in a way. If all this is accurate, if your funding had been cut off, let's say if Indian representatives had made sure that people in the Indian community did not fund your campaign, do you think that would have been foreign interference?
If that was the case, then yeah, certainly that would be foreign interference.
OK. Et s'ils...
Okay, if they had organized a campaign asking all communities, let's say there had been some kind of agreement between the Indian government and the Russian government, the US government, or whoever, and other foreign states had said, no, we mustn't fund Mr. Brown. We're going to ask people in our communities, citizens of our country who are in Canada, who originate from our country, not to finance Mr. Brown. Would that have been foreign interference in your campaign?
Yeah, if a foreign government's telling people not to donate or support a campaign, yeah, that would meet the level of foreign intervention. But you're getting to
OK.
to
Et si, à l'inverse, ils avaient dit,
And conversely, if they had said, we do encourage everyone to fund Mr. Brown so that they beat Mr. Poiliev, would that have been foreign interference?
yeah, foreign government asking to donate to a campaign in Canada, that would be foreign interference.
et vous, quand vous avez demandé aux
And when you asked other mayors to fund the protest against Quebec Bill 21, which is not in Ontario, doesn't that meet the threshold of interference in an affair that does not concern you?
It does concern me because we're in the same country. We're in the same legal system. Our
et
presidents
que
affect each other.
diriez-vous si des villes
And what would you say if Quebec towns decided to fund a Brampton citizen to contest your municipal bylaws?
They could. We're in the same country, and if there's a precedent that we set in Brampton,
OK, parce qu'on est dans le même pays.
Okay, because we're in the same country, you're telling me that you would agree that Vancouver, Montreal, Quebec City, Trois-Rivières, Toronto, whatever, Winnipeg, could fund a group of individuals in Brampton to have them contest your rules and bylaws. You'd agree with that?
I do hope that Bill 21 is overturned in the Supreme
Non, mais
Court.
est-ce que vous seriez d'accord avec... Je m'excuse.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't want to be impolite, Mr. Brown, but you know we don't have much time. I have a few seconds left. Would you agree? Yes or no?
That Canadian laws affect us? Yes. That the precedent set in Canada affect us? Absolutely.
Donc, vous invitez les maires des autres villes à...
So you're inviting mayors of other cities to fund protests against your bylaws if they think it's a bad one.
I just think everyone in Canada should support religious freedom and support our charter. Now, there's parts of our charter that you don't support. Then that's
Ça n'a rien à voir, là. Je parle pas de la...
That has nothing to do. I'm not talking about support for the charter. I think my time is up, Mr. Brown. I must admit that your notion of foreign interference worries me a bit.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McGregor. 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor Brown, as someone who has had close relations with the South Asian community for quite a number of years now, I guess you would be intimately familiar that none of this is new for that community in terms of foreign interference specifically from the government of India. This has been going on for decades. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. You also have a unique experience here, I think, which is pretty helpful to this committee because not only have you had a long relationship with the South Asian community, but also in your elected life, specifically as a member of Parliament. You mentioned your involvement with the Canada-India group, and you have had relations with members of the Indian government. I guess with that knowledge that you have, why do you think we've seen this recent escalation in terms of like the violent criminal acts that have happened on Canadian soil? Do you have any inkling as to like what has happened on the ground in India, which is lending itself to increased violence here on Canadian soil, more extortion, more threats, more blackmail, etc.?
I wish we had an answer to that. It's alarming and has obviously damaged this relationship between Canada and India.
And maybe another question is, I know you're having these important conversations with members of your community in Brampton about, how we can find ourselves out of this peacefully, how we can repair relationships, and make sure that we build a solid foundation of trust, mutual respect, and so on. What do members of your community say to you in terms of like what the path forward is for the government of Canada in its relations with India?
I think there is there's a diversity of advice. And so I think the feedback I get is probably similar to the feedback you're getting in Ottawa. But I would just say that if there is criminal actions taken on Canadian soil, they need to be taken seriously, and there needs to be accountability and justice for those actions.
Okay, well, I'll end by thanking you for your appearance at the committee today.
Great, thank you. Mr. Lloyd, 5 minutes.
Mayor Brown, picking up from a previous discussion, you had said that you believe that one of the ways that we can counter foreign interference is by exposing it. And you had said, in the wake of this extrajudicial killing, that or alleged extrajudicial killing, that exposing it was an important way to deter foreign interference. And I think we all want to see in this country that foreign interference doesn't happen in the first place in our country. Do you have any recommendations on ways that Canada can project strength and build our respect in the world to the point that countries will be deterred from trying to interfere in our democracy and interfere in through criminal acts in our country?
Well, I would suggest, and this is your domain in the government of Canada, but I believe if there is criminal activities that are taking place that are at the behest of foreign entities, they need to be made an example of, prosecuted to the full extent of our laws. We can't allow Canadians to be victims of foreign interference. And in the case of what happened in Surrey, that's just the fact that happened on Canadian soil is unbelievable.
Does it shock you that the suspects in the Najjar killing were out on bail for previous possession of weapons?
I've been a public and longtime critic of the bail system in Canada. I believe there are far too many loopholes and it's a broken system. And I'm not saying that today to be partisan. I've been saying this for a very long time. We started a campaign, Bail Reform Now, in Brampton, based on the tragedy of the Henderson Bellman incident, where someone lost her life for someone that was released on bail on the fifth occasion.
I agree. It's absolutely a disgrace what we're seeing, where repeat violent offenders are being just given bail routinely to go out there and recommit crimes. And I think, tying into this study on foreign interference, I think, would you agree, and I think you did in your statement, that by having a robust criminal justice system that not only captures and prevents these violent repeat offenders from committing crimes, but also keeping them behind bars where they belong while they await trial, if they are deemed a serious threat to the community, which these individuals, I believe, were a serious threat to the community, that would be a deterrence for foreign governments seeking to use, international gangs to commit extortion activities, commit murder in our country. If we had a stronger criminal justice system in this country, that would be a form of deterrence. Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
And specifically in terms of how we can strengthen our democracy, I think you made some very good recommendations, and I think as conservatives we're here because we want to actually find solutions to foreign interference. And I think when I see the Liberals here, as they seem to be asking you questions to try to score some points, I don't know exactly what they're trying to get at here, but. Mr. Brown, you said in your statement that you think you're being brought here for political reasons, and I don't suspect you maybe want to elaborate on what those reasons are, but I'll give you an opportunity.
I'll go back to the original comment I made that the nature of parliamentary committees is partisan nature. You've got a liberal side, you've got a conservative side. You all prep for these meetings. You've got, of course, NDP in the bloc. But why I said I thought the better forum for this was the Hogue Commission, as it's a nonpartisan commission looking at foreign intervention. My worry about being asked to come here is I didn't want to be brought in to answer questions that were partisan in nature, because my role as mayor of Brampton is nonpartisan. And I would say we've got a good relationship with all our federal MPs in Brampton and all our MPPs, and they come from different parties, and we pride ourselves on having good relationships.
Well, Mayor Brown, I just want to say I really do appreciate your professionalism in coming here. I know you didn't feel like you could bring any additional evidence to this committee, but I think you being here today, even though you were summoned here, has just given me some reassurance in terms of, and I think your recommendations have been very spot on in terms of strengthening our country's defenses against foreign interference and also cracking down on crime in our communities. And I know you're fighting for that in Brampton. I appreciated your advocacy on the auto theft file, an issue that was also very close to my heart, and things that we've been talking about in this community. So I just want to thank you for your advocacy. I want to thank you for your recommendations, and I want to say I appreciate the feedback that I've heard from you at this committee meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We move on to our final questioner, Mr. Gerritsen, for 5 minutes.
Well, I want to extend the same gratitude, Mr. Brown, to thank you for coming to committee. I certainly know that from my time as mayor of Kingston, despite the fact that even I was labeled as a liberal because of my connections to the Liberal Party, you certainly have to do your best to be as nonpartisan as possible. But I will say I never received in my time as mayor the accolades that you just did from a political party in a nonpartisan fashion. But in any event, thank you for being here. I do, take issue with the comments made by Mr. Lloyd moments ago. The reality is that we have foreign interference is known to be in existence in Canada. There are serious implications in your campaign, Mr. Brown, that took place, and I think that you, as well as Canadians, deserve to know exactly what happened. I think that, for Mr. Lloyd and Ms. Dancho and others to suggest that this is a big nothing burger, despite the fact that we have 5 individuals who have come forward and essentially whistleblowers, to now suddenly for the Conservatives to say, hey, nothing to see here, no need to pay attention to this. It was just a story by CBC. Don't worry about that. I think is extremely disingenuous. I think that this issue deserves the attention, and I think, Mr. Brown, that you deserve to know exactly what happened in your campaign for leadership. And in fact, I also believe that if individuals in your campaign were willing to come forward to share this information, then I think it's extremely credible. And I think that we need to get to the bottom of exactly what's going on and what happened in that case. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn the remainder of my time over to Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Chair. With everything we've heard here today, I'm going to move the following motion: that in relation to its study of Indian interference, the committee invite the following witnesses. 1, the Honourable Michelle Rumpel-Garner. 2, Mr. Jaskaran Sandhu. And 3, Mr. Harkriyat Singh. Apologies if my pronunciation is incorrect, but I do have it in both official languages if needed.
The motion is moved. Do I see any hands? I see Ms. Dancho.
Can I speak to
You
it?
can speak to it, yeah. Then I see Ms. Dancho.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, the rationale behind this is we heard here today very clearly that, in fact, Ms. Michelle Rumpel-Garner was, in fact, contacted by the Indian consulate. We're quite upset. According to testimony here today, in fact, the word angry was used about Mr. Brown's campaign and speeches in regards to using Sikh Nation in some of his language, that it was asked to be changed. In fact, they had a conference call. They discussed that. He mentioned a discussion around the displeasure by the Indian consulate expressing to Ms. Michelle Rumpel-Garner. So I think it's important that since that allegation was made, that she received that phone call and then relayed that information, that she be given a chance to appear before this committee and explain her side of the phone call. As Mayor Brown had rightly pointed out, he can't possibly know what was on the other end of that phone call, so we should go directly to the source who received it. In addition to that, Mayor Brown mentioned 2 people, and these are the 2 people, Mr. Sandhu and Mr. Singh, that I believe one was at least his campaign co-chair, and that after our MP Rumpel-Garner received this phone call, that there was a 45-minute debrief on that angry, again, quote, angry phone call with those 2 individuals. And since Mayor Brown was not part of that 45-minute debrief, I think it's important we bring these 2 individuals here as well.
I have a point of order for Mr. Lloyd.
No disrespect to Ms. O'Connell, but perhaps Mayor Brown could have the opportunity to leave if he wishes.
That's fair.
I'm fine with that.
If I can.
That's fair.
I think that's fair. Mayor Brown, thank you for your testimony. You testified for almost 2 hours. We thank you. You are formally discharged from the committee.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you. So just summarizing then, excuse me, before that Michelle Rumpel-Garner received a phone call. That phone call from members of the Indian Consulate or Consul General displeased with Mr. Brown as in his leadership campaign that he was, they were displeased with the language around Sikh nation being used. She relayed that message in a conference call. There was discussion being made around changing language in his campaign. After that, or after the phone call received by MP Rumpel-Garner, there was a debrief, a 45-minute debrief with Mr. Sandhu and Mr. Singh about the content of that call from the Consul General to MP Rumpel-Garner. So since Mr. Brown, or Mayor Brown, acknowledged that he was not part of that 45-minute debrief, I think it's entirely appropriate to find out from MP Rumpel-Garner what she recalls from that phone call, and then what Mr. Sandhu and Mr. Singh recall from that 45-minute debrief. And that's the rationale for this motion, and I will ask for a recorded vote at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Sancho?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd ask for a few minutes for us to review. I just received the motion. So I ask for a brief suspension.
Yep, we can suspend. meeting back to order. Ms. Dancho, you have the floor.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
There is a move to adjourn the meeting. It is dilatory, so we do have to proceed to it immediately, so we'll go to a vote.
Yes.
Mr. Gerritsen.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. It's Ms. Van der Berg is present. Ms. Van der Berg, please. Ms. Damoff.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Ms. Zaid.
Yes.
Ms. Denshaw.
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd.
In favor.
Mr. Matz.
Yes.
Mr. Badinelli.
Yes.
Mr. Forte. Monsieur
Oui.
Forte. Mr. McGregor.
Take your stand.
Yes, 11. 11.
The motion passes. Meeting adjourned.